Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be that guy posting here, but life likes to remind you that you're not immune to chaos. My wife, Elle, and I have been together for 7 years, married for 4. Up until recently, I would have told you our relationship was solid, not perfect, but stable in that comfortable, married people kind of way. We had our routines. Friday night takeout, Sunday morning coffee runs, arguing over whose turn it was to fold laundry. Nothing unusual, but the first signs of trouble were subtle. A shift in her tone, a weird edge in her voice when I'd ask small, harmless questions. She started guarding her phone like it was the nuclear codes. She'd get snappy over things that never used to bother her, like me asking if she wanted something from the grocery store. I brushed it off as stress from her job, which had been hectic. That's what she said, anyway. I remember telling myself, don't read too much into it. People get moody. Turns out, this wasn't just moodiness. It was the beginning of something I could feel but didn't yet understand. The moodiness turned into full-on distance. Elle started coming home later and later, always with some vague explanation. Meetings ran over, traffic was insane, I stopped for a drink with coworkers. None of these were inherently suspicious on their own, but the way she said them flat irritated. Like I was the one inconveniencing her by asking felt off. She also suddenly got really into her appearance. And look, I'm not the type to police what my wife wears. She was always taking care of herself, but this was different. New clothes, new perfume, makeup at 7 a.m. Even when she claimed she was too tired to talk to me. She started working out again, which I thought was great, but she wouldn't let me join her, insisting she needed the time alone. One night, she left her laptop open on the couch when she went to shower, something she never used to care about, and I saw a notification pop up. Just a name I didn't recognize and a preview line that made my stomach twist. Last night was amazing. Still thinking about it. And that was the exact moment I felt the floor under my life start to tilt. I froze. You know that feeling when your brain tries to convince you that you didn't actually see what you just saw? That was me, staring at her laptop like it might magically rewrite itself if I blinked hard enough. My hands were shaking, but I clicked the message anyway. It opened a whole thread, dozens of them between Elle and some guy named Mar. The kind of messages you never want to see your spouse exchanging with anyone else. Flirty comments, inside jokes I'd never heard before, and then the part that hit like a punch straight to the ribs. A picture of them together in a dimly lit bar. Her leaning into him with that smile she used to reserve for me. I felt my ears ringing, my chest hollow. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or cry or throw her laptop out the window. Before I could even process the rest, I heard the shower turn off upstairs. Suddenly I was scrambling, slamming the laptop closed, pretending like I'd just been scrolling through Netflix previews, instead of watching my marriage collapse in real time. When she came downstairs in her robe, hair wet, wrapped up in that calm everything is normal aura shed perfected, she gave me this quick glance and a clipped, "Why do you look weird?" I just muttered something about being tired, but inside, I knew the truth. Something was happening behind my back, and now I had proof. After seeing those messages, I couldn't unsee them. Every little thing she did that night felt different, wrong, like I was watching a stranger walk around my house wearing my wife's face. She curled up on the opposite end of the couch, scrolling through her phone with this little smirk one I'd literally never seen directed at me for months. Every ping from her screen felt like a jab. Eventually she announced, totally casually, "I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. Don't stay up till late." No kiss, no good night, just the tone of someone talking to a roommate they barely tolerate. But then something unexpected happened. At around midnight, I heard the front door click. Soft, but unmistakable. I jolted awake on the couch and rushed to the window. There she was, slipping out in leggings and a hoodie, moving quickly like she didn't want anyone noticing. And then a car pulled up. A car I didn't recognize. She got in without hesitation. No hesitation. No looking back. No, this is innocent. Just gone. My heart felt like it had dropped straight into my stomach. It was no longer just suspicious messages, it was real. Physical actions right in front of me, unfolding like some twisted live episode of my own humiliation. I almost ran outside, but I stopped myself. I didn't want a screaming match in the middle of the night on our lawn. I didn't want to give her the chance to spin it. Instead, I just stood there, staring at the empty driveway, and realized this wasn't a what I'm slip. She came back around 2:30 a.m. I was still awake, pretending to watch TV but really just listening for the door. The moment it opened, I muted everything. She stepped in quietly, tiptoeing like a teenager sneaking home after curfew. When she saw me sitting there, she actually jumped. "Oh my God, why are you still up?" she snapped like I was the one acting shady. I asked her where she'd been. Calm voice, steady expression. Even though my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. She didn't hesitate, not even for a second. Couldn't sleep. Went for a drive at 1 a.m. in someone else's car. I just stared at her, and she doubled down, got defensive, tossing her bag on the floor and rolling her eyes. "Seriously, don't start with me. I needed air. You're always overreacting lately." That line, "you're overreacting," hit me harder than any confession would've. It wasn't just a lie, it was her trying to make me doubt what I'd literally seen with my own eyes. Like she was rewriting my reality in real time. She stormed upstairs, still grumbling under her breath about me being dramatic. And I sat there on the couch, trying to breathe through the anger boiling up in my chest. I knew then that the confrontation was coming, and after that night, it wasn't going to be gentle. The next morning, the air in the house felt heavy, like even the walls knew what was coming. Elle acted like nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee, scrolled through her phone at the counter, barely looked at me. Honestly, that nonchalance almost made me angrier than the lies. It was like she'd already moved on from the relationship, mentally relocated to some alternate life where I didn't exist unless she needed someone to blame. When she finally noticed I wasn't talking, she sighed dramatically and said, "Are we really doing this today? Because I'm not in the mood. Not in the mood." Like my hurt was an inconvenience. Like finding your spouse sneaking out at 1 a.m. with another person was some sort of petty mood dampener. That was the breaking point. I told her we needed to talk, really talk. No brushing it off, no sarcasm, no sudden errands she forgot about. She rolled her eyes but followed me into the living room, crossing her arms like she was already preparing to be irritated. The moment we sat down, the words just came out of me. I told her I'd seen the messages. I told her I saw her get into a car that wasn't hers. I told her that the lies weren't adding up anymore. And for a second, just a split second, her expression cracked. Not guilt, not remorse, fear. But then it snapped right back into that cold, dismissive mask. "You're reading too much into things," she said. "You always do this. You twist everything." It was unreal. She was still trying to gaslight me even after I'd caught her red-handed. And that's when I realized this confrontation wasn't going to be about honesty. It was going to be about who she could convince I wasn't. When I pushed back calmly because I didn't want her twisting the narrative, she escalated. She stood up, pacing like she was the one whose world had just been blown apart. "So, what if someone messaged me?" she said. "People flirt. It's not a big deal unless you make it one." I reminded her that it wasn't just a message. There were dozens. There were photos. There was her slipping out in the middle of the night into someone else's car. That's when she threw out the next excuse, so fast it sounded rehearsed. "Has just a coworker. He was vending last night. I didn't want to wake you, so I talked to him in person. That's it." A coworker who sends last night was amazing. A coworker she meets at 1 a.m. in a random car. I told her the story didn't make sense. She rolled her eyes harder than she ever had in her life, like I was being intentionally obtuse. "You're being paranoid," she said. "Honestly, it's embarrassing that you're acting this insecure." At that point, it felt like she wasn't even trying to lie well, she was trying to overwhelm me with so many nonsense explanations that I'd give up. Like the goal wasn't to be believed, it was to exhaust me. Her tone kept getting sharper, more condescending, more frustrated, like I was forcing her into an uncomfortable situation she had no responsibility for. Every time I asked a direct question, she dodged it. Every time I tried to stay calm, she amped up her irritation. Finally, she snapped. Nothing happened. Drop it. And for the first time since the whole mess started, I said out loud, "I don't believe you." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. But underneath the outrage, I swore. After that, the house felt hollow. She retreated to her bedroom, muttering something about me being dramatic. I stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling, feeling this mixture of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak I didn't know how to process. My chest ached in a way I didn't think was possible. Every memory of our marriage, the small, quiet moments, the inside jokes. The nights I thought we were solid suddenly felt like a lie, stitched together around her version of reality. I kept replaying the messages, the photos, the way she lied with such ease, and I kept asking myself, was I blind all these years? Did I ignore the signs because I wanted to believe in her? I tried talking to a friend later that day. Halfway through, I started shaking like I was holding a storm in my hands. I couldn't even speak properly. I wanted to scream at her, to yell, to throw something, but I also wanted to cry. And I did. In the middle of my living room, alone. It was the first time in years I allowed myself to feel like my life had been upended by someone I trusted completely. But underneath all that chaos, a small voice practically buried kept whispering, "You deserve better than this." And that whisper, it was terrifying, because I realized that hearing it meant I might actually have to act on it. I couldn't just sit there forever. That night, I decided I needed one more confrontation, this time with a clear head and no screaming, no theatrics. I waited until she came out of her room for water and said calmly, "We need to talk now." Her first reaction was annoyance. "Really? Again?" she said, rolling her eyes like I was the problem for still caring. I laid it all out, every piece of evidence, every lie, every time she came home late, every vague excuse. I told her I'd seen the messages, the pictures, her late-night disappearance. I didn't yell, didn't beg, just facts. Her reaction? She laughed. Yeah, literally laughed. "You're acting insane. You think I'd throw away our marriage over a few flirty messages? Please." I froze. I couldn't tell if I was more hurt or more furious. Every instinct screamed at me to explode, but I stayed quiet, watching her spin her web of lies with this shocking, casual arrogance. Then she did the classic move, the blame game. "You know, if you paid more attention to me, maybe this wouldn't have happened. You've been so distant lately." It was surreal. She was the one betraying me, yet somehow she made it my fault. I finally said, flatly, "No, this is your choice to make. I saw everything, and it's not about attention, it's about respect. You've lost mine." And for the first time, I saw her hesitate. Just a flicker before she. After that second confrontation, I didn't sleep well for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the texts, her laughing while lying, the way she slipped out at night like it was normal. Anger was the first wave. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to gaslight me after everything. I paced the apartment, slammed doors, muttered to myself. Then came the crushing sadness. That wave hit harder, like a physical weight pressing down on me. I cried in the shower, in the kitchen, in my car while parked outside. It wasn't just betrayal, it was the loss of the life I thought we had built together. What hurt most wasn't just the act, it was the habitual deception. She didn't just cheat once, she built a secret world I wasn't allowed into. And every excuse, every sarcastic remark, every dismissive "you're overreacting" was a reminder that I was invisible in the very marriage I thought was solid. I started questioning myself, too. Had I missed signs for years? Was I naive, weak? But every time I asked, a clearer thought cut through. "No, you didn't miss it. She hid it. She lied. That's on her." By the end of the week, the anger softened into a strange, hollow clarity. After a week of emotional chaos, I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep sitting in limbo, pretending nothing had happened. Part of me wanted to scream, pack her bags, and throw her out of the apartment right then and there. Another part of me, the one that still loved the woman I thought she was, wanted to try to salvage what was left. I spent hours alone, thinking about our marriage, the years we'd shared, the promises we'd made. But the more I reflected, the more I realized that love isn't just about feelings, it's about trust, respect, and honesty. And those were gone. I finally sat her down. "I've made a decision," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can't stay in this marriage. Not like this. Not after the lies, the cheating, and the constant disrespect. We're done." She immediately went on the offensive, angry, defensive, and bitchy in the most exhausting way. "You're overreacting. You're being dramatic. You're blowing this out of proportion." I let her talk, but I didn't respond. I realized she would never admit the truth. She would never take responsibility. And I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. By the end of that conversation, the decision was final. Separation was the only way to protect myself from further damage. Once the decision was made, the next challenge was practical, separating our lives without completely destroying what little civility remained. It felt surreal, packing up years of shared memories, photos, books, kitchenware into boxes that suddenly felt like tombs of the life I thought we had. Every item I touched carried a memory of her smile, her laugh, or just the ordinary moments I now saw through a lens of betrayal. I caught myself staring at her coffee mug longer than necessary, feeling the absurd mix of anger, grief, and disbelief. The hardest part was dealing with her reaction. She oscillated between mockery, excuses, and manipulation. At one point, she said, "You think leaving me makes you the victim? You're pathetic." Another time, she tried to guilt-trip me with, "I can't believe you do this to us over something that wasn't even real." It was exhausting, emotionally draining, and, at times, infuriating. But I stayed calm. I had to. I had to reclaim my own life one step at a time, even if she continued to twist reality to her advantage. By the end of the week, the legal and practical pieces were set in motion. The apartment would be divided, finances accounted for, and eventually would go our separate ways. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Relief because the decision was mine. Sorrow because this was the life I never thought I'd lose in such a betrayal. Even after the separation process was underway, the emotional fallout hit me in unpredictable waves. Some days I felt a quiet relief, almost like breathing fresh air after being trapped underwater. Other days I was hit with sudden, sharp pangs of grief, memories of laughter, inside jokes, and late-night talks that now felt like cruel reminders of what had been stolen from me. I noticed myself scanning her absence in the apartment, expecting her to appear and deny everything with that same smug, bitchy bravado she'd perfected. Sometimes I'd catch myself replaying arguments in my head, analyzing every word, wondering if I could have done something differently, though deep down I knew there was nothing I could have done to stop someone determined to lie and cheat. Friends and family helped, but even they didn't fully understand the mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. It was like mourning a person who was still alive, but who had been living a secret life that erased all the trust between us. But gradually, I started reclaiming myself. I reconnected with hobbies I had abandoned, spent more time with friends, and allowed myself small pleasures without guilt. The heartbreak didn't vanish, but it became a backdrop, a reminder of what I had endured, not what I was defining. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the raw anger and grief began to dull. Not disappear, never disappear completely, but settle into something manageable. I realized that while I had lost the version of my marriage I believed in, I hadn't lost myself. I was still me, resilient, capable, and deserving of honesty and respect. I stopped obsessing over what she was doing, whom she was with, or the lies she'd told. I didn't need her validation or recognition anymore. The betrayal had taught me a painful but crucial lesson. Love without trust and respect isn't love, it's a trap. And I didn't need to be trapped ever again. I also realized something important about forgiveness. Not forgiveness for her, it wasn't required, but for myself. Forgiving myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting too much, for allowing her manipulation to affect my self-worth. That forgiveness made space for real healing. By this point, I was finally able to imagine a future where I wasn't defined by her betrayal. I started thinking about new goals, new relationships, and, most importantly, a new version of myself who would never compromise on integrity again. Looking back, I realized that this experience, as devastating as it was, taught me more about myself than I ever expected. I learned the hard way that love without honesty and respect is empty. I learned that betrayal can feel like it shatters your entire world, but it also forces you to confront who you truly are and what you deserve. To anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts. If you notice red flags, don't ignore them. Protect your emotional well-being, and don't let anyone manipulate you into doubting yourself. Betrayal isn't just about the act itself, it's about the erosion of trust and respect, which are the foundation of any healthy relationship. It took time, tears, and more anger than I thought I could handle, but I eventually reclaimed my life. I won't lie, the scars are still there, but they remind me to never settle for lies, excuses, or someone who doesn't value me. And as for Elle, she's a chapter in my past, a painful lesson in disguise. I don't wish her ill, but I no longer carry her weight. I carry myself. If I could offer one final piece of advice, don't let someone else's betrayal define your worth. You're allowed to walk away, you're allowed to heal, and you're allowed to live a life where trust and respect aren't optional, they're standard. That's all. Subscribe to this channel, click on the like button, and have a good day, everyone.